Tonight, there's new hope for a historic state office building on the grounds of the state capitol. It's a building that the Haslam administration had wanted to demolish. But a new study expected to be presented to the State Building Commission this week concludes that destroying the Cordell Hull building may not be such a good idea. News Channel 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams has been dogging this story for more than a year.
And this is the study. It was commissioned after News Channel 5 investigates raised questions about the advice the state was getting from its own consultants. And historic preservationists like what it says.
Yeah, I think we are very surprised, happily surprised.
The money to tear down the 1950s era Cordell Hall complex was already approved, and the consultants who would oversee the demolition had already been hired.
As we were printing out the petition this morning.
But after historic preservationists collected petitions to save it, the Haslam administration commissioned a second opinion from Centric Architecture. That study now concludes it would be less expensive to restore the buildings than to replace them.
It's a huge relief that there was time taken to take another look, and that's what we really had asked with the petition, was just for the time to be taken to take another look.
The Haslam administration got the advice to destroy the Cordell Hall from its consultant, Jones Lang LaSalle.
And that is a very unique situation in that it is leaking.
And former General Services Commissioner Steve Case had told lawmakers the building had a $40 million water problem.
There's not $40 million available to spend to get it where it doesn't leak, where there's not mold, where there's not mildew. I think that's the main issue.
But News Channel 5 investigates discovered the true numbers were far less. And when state lawmakers asked for a tour to see the water problems for themselves,
it's dry. It's completely dry.
Right now?
Yeah.
There was very little to see.
You know, when we went down to look at those things, they were so insignificant, finding it very difficult to find evidence of it. That in and of itself was a red flag to most of the state lawmakers, and certainly us.
The second opinion notes that the worst problems are not actually here inside the Cordell Hall. Instead, they're over here inside the attached Central Services building, which it concludes could be torn down and replaced with a much-needed parking garage. The new study concludes that tearing down the Cordell Hall and replacing it with a similar building could cost more than $190 million. Tearing it down and leasing new space for state employees elsewhere would cost $121 million over the next 20 years. The worst case scenario for renovation with a new parking garage, $94 million.
I would say even their numbers put every precaution in, many of which aren't likely they're going to incur a cost on.
And what the new numbers don't reflect is the value of saving a unique piece of architecture on the grounds of the state capitol.
Those are all kind of philosophical things that transcend just the bottom line that we look at as well.
And that's not included in this report.
That's not in the report. That's extra.
Now, that study, along with possible recommendations from the Haslam administration, is expected to be presented Thursday to the State Building Commission, which will have the final say, Vicki.
So what does this say about the advice that the Haslam administration got from Jones Lang LaSalle?
Well, if you ask the Haslam administration, they will say it doesn't say much of anything about that advice. It's just another way of looking at it. But critics note that JLL stood to make a lot of money off of negotiating new leases, and that's just the mindset that the company brought to this project.
All right, thanks, Phil. Now, if you want to see a summary of this new study for yourself, just go to our website at newschannel5.com.